Yisrael Abelesz. My name is Sharon Tyler. We're in London, and this is tape 3. You were just telling me about knowing that with the gypsies going, that the sort of your fate was sealed. And you were telling me about your experience in Auschwitz.
Well, as I said before, Auschwitz, I was in a barrack which was for youngsters, those who came into the camp. Not many younger than me, perhaps about the same age, but they were all taller, between the age of, I would say, from 14 to 16. Lot of boys from all over Hungary. We tried to group ourselves among localities because there was so much difference between people from different part of Hungary. Most of the people from Eastern Hungary, they speak Yiddish. In Western Hungary, they spoke Hungarian. And also then we met the Polish prisoners who were already longer, and they were more wiser than us, they were more experienced. And we learned a lot from them about how to try to survive.
What kind of things did
I mean, first of all, you have to try to be physically as fit as possible. And that's the only way you can do it, if you try to get some extra food from whatever the ration giving you. Secondly, always avoid, whenever there is selection, at that time we knew that there's going to be some selections. It was obvious because from the camps they were taking people to work. So when people were taken to work, they looked at it, and people who looked like they are capable to work. And people who were older or looked sick or youngsters, they were always left behind. When I looked around towards the end of the summer, the whole camp was only people who are how shall I say it, not capable to work, leftovers, like me. I was 14 years old, but I was small and quite thin, and so how I got in the camp, that was just by the good luck of Mengele, had a whim. And I was worried about the future. My brother could have been gone away, but he always from Auschwitz. I didn't want to stay in Auschwitz because those chimneys were constantly burning, and I knew what's going on a few hundred yards from us. And but I was never taken away into transports. So when it came to the selection, it started in the autumn. Immediately, the first selection, which was Erev Rosh Hashanah, the day before Rosh Hashanah, and I was selected. But at that time, they were not very strict on the selection, because they told the children that the children are being selected to be taken to a children camp who are getting much better conditions. And most of the children were naive, so were just. They didn't need much encouragement to go to the children camp, but I didn't want to go to the children camp because I knew I knew what it meant, children camp. So it was no difficulty to getting out of it.
How did you know what it meant? From what people had told you, or it was just an instinct that you had?
What people told me, and I had an instinct that this is the Germans are not making for the children a special treatment. And if they take children, it's because they are useless for them.
So there's something about your personality that enabled you to
possibly
out,
because a lot of people, even older than me, and they just went like the sheep to the selections, and they haven't fought to get out of it. I fought. I thought this is the only way of survival, not to getting selected to among, and I managed to avoid it successfully. I mean, it's really a miracle how I avoided it the second time and the third time, because I was always being taken.
How did you avoid it?
I was running all the time. So, the second selection was again the day before Yom Kippur. The Germans selected these days for the selection. And then the whole camp was one big selection. Everybody in the camp had to go to the large square of the camp, and they put up a piece of timber horizontally, and people who didn't reach that height, they have to put on one side. But as soon as I was put on the wrong side, I immediately jumped over to those who were selected that they are all right.
And nobody saw you do it, or nobody stopped
Yes, they saw me do it, and I started running, and somebody ran after me. One of the couples, which is, and as he caught up with me, he says to me in Yiddish, he says, run away from me. And that's what I did. So he pretended that he's holding me, and he said to me that I should free myself from him and run away. And I ran and ran, and then the German also was a prisoner, but they were just as wicked as the SS. He noticed that I escaped from this Jewish couple or something, and he ran after me. And luckily, at that day, there was a foggy day, and in a fog, the Arbeitskommandos, those people are going out to work. They are not going to work because they are worried about escape, so they stayed in the camp. And there was a lot of Russian prisoners of war in the camp. They were just strong, grown-up people, and they stopped the Lagerältester. Stop! Don't run after him. And it looks like he was afraid of him. And he let me run, and so I ran away. That was my second escape. And still on the same selection. So the next day.
The next day there was another selection.
No, still the same selection.
Right,
next day, Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
It was on Yom Kippur. On the night of Kol Nidre night, from the barracks, which were the children who were selected, somehow they broke out, and there was 20 children disappeared from the camp, from that closed barrack, and they dispersed in the camp. So the next day, when they made the countings, the appeal, which was a daily routine in the camp, they had to find 20 or so people. And because you see, the Germans said once had been selected, they said how many people were selected, and they have to keep the account of these people. And the block commander who was in the barrack, he is responsible for that. He should for the numbers. So when they came to the appeal, I was standing in rows of 5, and I was standing on a piece of brick or something that I shouldn't look so auspicious that I'm small, and so I should look like the same like the others. But when the assessment came and he saw me, he just picked me out. He just pulled me out and says, "You go to the other barracks." I knew what they want, and I started crying to him that I'm strong, I can work. And there was a German prisoner, that Lagerältester, and he gave me a smack in the face. He said, "Shut up," in German. And the assessment said to me, lass him, leave him alone. So he pushed me back, and he took someone next to me. Just like that. But that was between life and death. Mm. And there was another selection. I don't remember how I escaped, but by that time I had experience how to always make myself, whenever there is Mengele came into the camp, I just, one thing you have to know, that when they make the selection, then they don't count the numbers that everybody is there. So if you are hiding and you don't appear at the selection, then you can avoid it. That's how I learned it by the third selection. So I survived. I survived all the 3 selections.
And you think that because of your age and size, you would have
otherwise? I would have no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I was not, in their eyes, I was not fit to work. 14-year-old, small, little boy. It's not an asset for the German war machinery.
Mm. And your brother, my
brother was all the time was in fact what happened, I just found out later. We had a friend also from the same town as we are, who managed to work in the kitchen on the kitchen of the camp, and he managed to smuggle us out some extra food almost daily. And my brother found out that I've been selected. He didn't know that I managed immediately to escape from the selection. He went to see, look, what can we do? Because you could bribe the the block commanders who are in charge with something. Some people had with them dollars or jewelry, or even in my case, my friend in the kitchen bribed him with 3 pails of potatoes that he should release me. And he took him the potatoes, but I was not in his barrack because I managed to get I managed to avoid it. But he told me now that he got 3 because I met him just this summer. I met this guy. He lives in New York. He told me the story that he paid me for my life 3 pails of potatoes from the kitchen.
And you'd already gone.
But yeah.
You said that Mengele you had this contact with him right on the very beginning.
Yeah.
Did you see him frequently afterwards? Did he know again did he seem to know who you were?
No, I don't think he knew me. I know him. He didn't know me what happened.
So he didn't remember from that?
No. I mean, I must have passed hundreds of thousands of people through his life. I mean, a human life in his eyes was just a flicker of the finger. And we decided on the spot within seconds of human life. Just like that, pointing left or right.
How did you know, or what did you know about Mengele at the time? I mean, you just knew he was a powerful man.
He was a powerful man. He was called the Lager doctor, Lagerarzt. And also I knew about it, that he's carrying out, I knew about it, that he's doing medical experimental work somewhere in the laboratory. And we knew that the twins, that was his favorite subject of research. And they lived in a separate barracks, and they had somehow better treatment. Possibly they want to keep them in a better physical condition for his experiments. And we were envying the twins, that they looked like they're always getting more food. But at the end of the day, not many of them survived. I mean, it's been written about Mengele's experiments, and I can only say, I cannot say only what I heard, so I just not really relevant and possibly this what I know about it. I just read about it later on. At that time, we didn't know anything about it. I just knew something fishy going on with the twins.
You also said that the selections were on Erev Rosh Hashanah and Erev Yom Kippur. Now, how did you know when the Jewish? I mean, did you have a sense of time and dates?
No, we had. Funnily enough, there was always somebody in the camp. They knew about Jewishness and knew about when is the dates. In fact, my brother had a Machzor, Jewish prayer book for the festivals. He paid for it a whole brand. And we had that film, one set of film we had in the camp, and we put on film every day. Whenever, I wouldn't say all the time, but while we had access to that pair of film, there was queuing up from the early morning till late. And everybody just had to put on the hand film and on the head film and just had to say the first chapter of Shema and the next one. And they were queuing up, hundreds of people for that pair of film.
And what else did you do to maintain your Jewish identity?
Well, I don't have to do a lot with the Jewish identity as such, because we were Jews.
Sure.
But I mean, my
Jewish life rather than Jewish
life. I mean, I was eating whatever was provided. And sometimes you know, in the evening with the bread, occasionally you had a bit of piece of salami or something. My brother didn't eat it, but I ate it. I thought I have to. Well, it's the most important. I realize that we are now in exceptional times, and the main aim in life now is to survive, and anything else will be subordinate to that. And to be surviving, not only forget about Jewish practice, but also forget about that you are a human being. Anything which matters in life. If you start thinking what you are, what happened, then you will just go and electrocute yourself to the electric wire. But I thought I mustn't think about it. I just has to behave like an animal. Just survival to avoid being beaten up, avoid try to get as much food like as you can, and just survival. And everything spiritual comes if you manage to survive. Mm. And I had some great doubts about it. At the end of the day, I will survive, even after when I survived the selections. I remember, because later on, after the selection period, which was the time of the Jewish festivals, coincided with the Jewish festivals. Not by just coincidence. The Germans made it specially to hurt the Jews even more. Mm. But afterwards, they stopped the selections in Auschwitz. Stopped the gassing. It came an order from Himmler. In fact, I was there in the camp when people who were already in the gas chambers, and there came the order that the gassing has to stop. They were told dress again and leave the camp. I was in the camp when people came back from the gas chambers. Never happened before. Mm.
So they thought they were going to their death, and
they had an order that the gassing has to stop, and the Germans are following orders, so immediately stopped the gassing. They took out a group of youngsters.
What did you understand by that the gassing was stop?
Well, what I understood at that time, that the Germans, they changed their policies. The reason is because by that time, must have been October or November, they realized that Auschwitz has to be evacuated very soon because the Russians are getting near, and they have to avoid all the signs, all the traces of what happened here. In fact, that was the only bit of work which I carried out in my camp. I'm never fit to work, but when the gas chambers were destroyed, were demolished, I was working to take away the rubble with carts from the place where the gas chamber and spread it out somewhere else in the open. That was a bit of work which I did. But it was a good sign that there is no gassing, so that danger is off. But how I'm going to survive in the last, when Auschwitz is going to be evacuated, that was still very much in doubt, very much in question.
So you didn't work most of the time.
No.
How did you occupy yourself? What did you do?
What did I do? I don't remember. But just was always highlights of the day. The 3 times when we had either liquid, a breakfast, and cooked something, and in the evening, and there was appeals in between. I was coming and going in the camp, visiting here and there. When it was, I was not doing anything specific. Mm-hmm.
But the other people in your barracks were teenagers who were working.
No, in my barracks where I was, nobody was working. It was not a working barrack. Right. Later on, when after the selection, then they said that everybody has to get some kind of work. So I will also be allocated to some commando. That's at the time when I was working on the removal of the rubble of the crematoriums and the gas chambers. That was only work, and then I became ill suddenly, end of November. And I was taken to hospital, in Auschwitz hospital. Mm-hmm. Auschwitz, or rather Birkenau, had a hospital. This is a great contrast, what the Germans in their devilish ways. Even in fact, the hospital camp, it was a separate enclosure camp, so many barracks there, was very near to the gas chambers, and all kind of illnesses were treated there in the hospital. There were Jewish doctors. There was no shortage of medicine because of the transport about everything, and there were hospitals. So if a Swiss Cross, a Red Cross delegation would come to Auschwitz, you would just show them, look here, we are treating, we got excellent hospitals here. But what the truth was, the hospitals, once it became full, they emptied it out. Everybody. They went to the gas chambers. And the next day they can start at admission again. That's how it works, the hospital in Auschwitz.
What happened when you were ill?
I was ill. I was taken to hospital. I had typhoid. Mm. I didn't know what I had. All I know that I had very high temperature. I couldn't stand on my feet. And I knew that that physically I knew that some kind of illness I've got. So they took me in. They made all kind of tests, and by the time it came back the test that I had typhoid, I was already recovered.
Just by your own
Just
body.
my own body resistance.
Right.
I've recovered. In the hospital, in fact, you had a little bit more food than in the camp. And I recovered. Not only that I recovered, they took from me blood. I think it was 100 centiliter of blood they took from me for using